Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to talk about learning piano quickly through strategy by using my logical methodology on the A section of Für Elise. And you may ask yourself, why doesn't this guy just do one of those synesthesia videos, right, with the pretty colors coming down? Or why doesn't he just show us like every single note and finger on the screen, right? Like just show us, that would be much easier, right? Because right now if you were to search, honestly, you could easily find somebody showing you basically every single note and finger through all of Für Elise. And I'm not going to do that here because I know that by letting you purposely struggle, finding the notes yourself, it will lead to deeper learning. You'll become much stronger at reading music. You'll become much better at solving problems. You won't be dependent on YouTube videos, and you'll become much better able to learn and tackle complicated pieces in the future, because there will reach a limit where if you're not able to solve the problems and read the music yourself, it'll become difficult to get to certain levels of detail. So anyway, we're just going to get right into it here. So in the A section of Für Elise, the first thing I always want to determine with the student is what can the student do easily, right? So what type of set, and by set, as some of you know from other videos, we always mean one section plus the following beat. For instance, a one measure set is one measure plus the following beat, like from star to star. A third measure set would be a third of a measure plus the following beat, like from triangle to triangle, right? So what is it that the student can do easily? And for a lot of beginner students, it's probably going to be separate hand sets that they have to start with. We're not going to try to do both. And separate hand sets, I'm going to erase this for a second. At this point, I just use within regular brackets to keep track of. In both hand sets, I'll use these fancy curly brackets. And probably what I'll have the student do, after I've taught them shortly how to read music, this is probably one of the most common pieces. Like if the student was a total beginner, never read music before, we'll typically start this even by the third lesson. I'll teach them quickly how to read music, at least the basics, and then we'll just get right into this. And so like what I talk about here is really what makes it possible to start learning this. So assuming they have no particular difficulties playing one note at a time, I would help to resolve that, of course, we should just start solving one measure separate hand sets. So this means playing right hand alone, for instance, from here to there, right hand from here to there, and so on. Right? So we would do that probably for a while. So we'll just continue doing that. And to solve each of these one measure sets, it may be that we're adding in reverse in order to solve them, right? If the student's having trouble actually playing from here to here, it may be that they have to play just like these 3 notes or something, or then just these 4 notes, and then maybe the entire thing. If it doesn't go well, then they go back to the last 3 notes or the last 2 notes, and then eventually they put together the entire thing. But in any case, let's assume that that's going pretty well. Maybe they're using adding in reverse or some other strategies, but it's causing them to play from here to here correctly, here to here correctly, and so on. So we would just continue going here. One measure set here, one measure set here. So let's say that we do this for some time, and for sake of time, I'm not going to elaborate too much on this. It could be then they start solving left hand one measure sets, right? Left hand alone from here to there. You want to include that note for a smooth transition from here to there and so on. And I'll just indicate that in red. So this is a bit crowded here, but usually you want it to be vertically aligned. Okay, there's nothing even in the left hand here, but let's just put a 1 there. Okay. Right, so in each of these instances, we're just playing separate hands, or, right hand alone from there to there, left hand alone from there to there. I think it's a good idea to stick with one hand for a while, then go back and start doing the other hand. Okay, so at this point, we have a choice of either we can increase the size of the separate hand sets that we're practicing, or we can start transitioning into both hands. So I think there's advantages to each one. In this case, let's go for increasing the separate hand sets. So this would mean that now I'm going to try to play right hand from here all the way to over there, right? 2 measures plus the following beat. So when I do that, Maybe I'll just mark it in blue in this case. I'll erase these. And this means like right hand, I played from there all the way to over there, right? And then the same thing from there all the way to there. And again, in order to do these correctly, it may be that we are adding in reverse. Maybe the student plays from here to there, there all the way to there all the way to there, and then the entire 2, right? So then I write the 2 over there. And then in this case, I would play from here all the way to over there. 2 measures plus the following beat. So I'll erase this. And then over here, we have like a 2 measure set here. You could play like here, and then repeat back to the beginning. Or we could play here, take the second ending, and then go on to the next part. It's not important that this is, if you haven't encountered this before, that you completely understand this. It's more just the general idea of increasing from one measure segments roughly into 2 measure ones. Okay, and then we can do the same thing with the left hand. So really what I'm trying to teach here is more about just the type of thinking that's involved. And then here for the left hand, this would mean playing, let's see. Well, actually, we would still do from here to here. So this wouldn't be too difficult to do because this is just empty. These are just rests here, or this is just a rest here. So left hand playing from there to there, then maybe left hand playing from there to there, and so on, right? So we're choosing this time to stay longer within separate hand sets. So we would do all these left hand ones. We combine the ones together into 2s. And again, it could be that we're adding in reverse in order to solve them. Some of my other videos go into more detail about some of these concepts. So at some point, we're probably going to want to start solving both, but at this point, we could still plant some more seeds on the frontier, right? We did 2s in the beginning. Maybe now we want to start solving some new sections again. So we have a 1 here, maybe a 1 here, 1 here. So again, right hand from there to there perfectly, there to there perfectly, and so on. I think I'll say at this point, I'm not going to like walk through the whole A section until everything is linked together. I think it's more just the idea of the type of problem solving that's required, right? So for these ones, for instance, like it may be that you're adding in reverse in order to solve each of these. So same thing with this one. If you're doing from here to here, it might be you do just the last 2 notes, last 3 notes, last 4 notes, then the whole thing. If that doesn't go well, you go back to the last 2 notes, etc. Right? So we're solving some 1 measure sets here. And then it could be that we're doing the same thing in the left again. We're just taking this time, and this is kind of a special situation, but for the sake of this example, let's assume that this is pretty straightforward. We're just taking the time to do 1 measure sets, separate hands through these areas, right? So now maybe we can go back and start linking both hands together. And oftentimes, as I've mentioned at some point in the past, we want to go from separate hand to both hand sets in a 2-to-1 ratio, at least, because separate hands is, or both hands is harder than separate hands, right? It's not really that 1 + 1 = 2. It's like 1 + 1 = like 3 or 4, because the both hands is just more difficult to coordinate, right? So at this point, because we solved these 2 measure separate hand sets, like right hand could play perfectly from there to there, left hand could play perfectly from there to there, now it's reasonable to start doing 1 measure both hand sets. This is easy because there's no left hand involved, so it's the same thing as right hand alone. You can include these pickup notes, these extra notes there. And usually when I start solving both, I may begin erasing the separate hand sets. And do this in like green, I guess. So this would be like both hands from there to there. And now we have from here to here. Now the fact that you'd already done 2 measure separate hand sets means you know this area pretty well. So the chances are definitely greatly increased for success. And this would indicate that you played perfectly from here to here, both hands. The fact that you had spent the time to get to know the separate hands, it should have made it much easier to do this. But again, you would want to use strategy of some kind. And again, we can use adding in reverse. So we could play just the last, we could play just the last 2 notes or the last 3 notes, right? So effectively, right hand on its own You could add in this note as well too, right? Don't forget this new left-hand note that's here. And then you could play from right here. You could add just that one note, like left, and then the rest of this, and then play this, right? And then you could play from the note before that, and then you could do the whole thing, right? You can literally add one note at a time. And if this entire thing doesn't go well, then go right, even just play just this, and then go right back to just the last two, just the last three, and so on, right? So you might be alternating between the whole thing and just the last two, just the last three. You might be adding in reverse all the way, but it should result in the solving of a one. And you can use similar strategies in these other measures, right? You can similarly add in reverse the way that I just showed you using this measure. You could do the last two, last three, last four, etc. So basically what should happen if your problem solving is good is that now you should be able to start solving these ones. So I think we're starting to get to the end of this explanation, because the rest of it will be relatively straightforward from here. I think you get the basic idea. This is kind of like a staggered spaced repetition strategy. You can see that we have more complicated things going on over here. Maybe we solved ones over here, both hands. And then over here, it may be that we're increasing the size of these. This part might be a little bit unusual. This might actually be like a grouping of three, possibly, over here. So this may be an exception, but normally you would increase the ones into twos. So you're taking, the stuff in the middle, you're increasing their complexity, and then you're planting more seeds on the frontier here. It may be that you're solving one measure separate hand sets through this new area over here. Right, this would be right hand. It may be that you're doing the same thing with the left hand. Okay. So you're just covering a lot of ground here. And then meanwhile, in the middle, it could be that you're increasing those one measure separate hand sets into twos, like this. Same thing over here. Could be you're increasing this left hand one into a two. Okay. So basically, like, this is reaching some kind of like a middle level of completion. Here we're just planting seeds. We're just getting these areas going. And then in the front, we're making them more and more advanced, right? The next time we come back to this, we may solve like a two measure set here. Right, so this section at the very beginning, we had these two one measure sets next to each other. Now we may try to increase that into a two because some time has passed. And in order to solve the two, it may be, again, that we play just this part, then this, then here to here, right? We're adding in reverse, then from here to there, all the way back to the beginning. If that doesn't go well, we might go all the way to the end again, then add in reverse gradually, and then do the whole thing. Right? So same thing with these ones over here. It may be that we're doing just this ending, then here, last half measure set, last one, 1.5, then the whole thing. And so then we'll erase these and then write in a two here. And things would kind of proceed that way. So we have more and more complex things linking together here through strategy, kind of like middling stage things over here, right? Getting to, like, probably the next time through, we would start to do both hands here. And then we're just starting to familiarize ourselves with these completely new sections on the frontier. So what should happen eventually is that we'll have like 4 measure both hand sets, 2 measure both hand sets here, 1 measure both hand sets on the frontier. And this section at the beginning will get larger and larger. And then everything will just chunk together in due time. Now, I realize that some of the explanation, some of it may be confusing because you may not understand, if you're a beginner, of course, all of these markings. You might not know, why did I say like to link those ones into a 3 measure set instead of a 2 in that one instance? I wouldn't be too worried about that. My hope is just through talking through the general thought process that you can even take some of these ideas and begin to apply them. Because in some other videos I talk about concepts and it may seem a bit nebulous or ambiguous or vague, right? Because it's kind of like existing in a vacuum. But here I hope that you can glean some bits of knowledge or even wisdom, hopefully, and think like, okay, I don't totally understand everything that he just said, but I can see that I can start practicing separate hands, and I can see that adding in reverse in the way he described, that may help me. Or, I can see that I can actually do like very small sections, and when I come back the next time around, they can start to link into larger sections. This is what makes it possible for a total beginner to begin to play something like this if you start utilizing your mind in the right way. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have thoughts, questions. Please like and subscribe if you did find it helpful, and looking forward to the next one.